guys, what is up? Hey, we're back with another episode. This is episode number 2, by the way. So I say another like it's a common thing, but we're still kind of refining this process. Another episode of the Photographic Collective podcast. And guys, if you're listening to this and you're wondering what the purpose of this podcast is, it's really simple. The purpose of the podcast is just to help you level up your photography, help you strengthen your brand and your client experience, and help you succeed in your dreams as a wedding photographer, portrait photographer, whatever you're doing with a camera in your hands. Guys, my name is Miles Whitboyer, and I am so excited that you have found your way over here to this podcast. Here's a few things I will promise you. These podcast episodes are always going to be short and to the point. We're going to start having some guests on here very soon. And even when we have them in, the goal is to always keep everything under 15 to 20 minutes. I want you guys to be able to get in and get out and get back to your day. So we're continuing after episode 1, a quick series about storytelling. And guys, I have to admit, I jumped over on Google before I started recording, and I just asked masterclass.com, what are the 5 elements of a story? What are the key parts of a good story? And here's what it told me. Number 1, it said there has to be a premise. The premise of the story means where are we and why? What's the mood like? What does it feel like? What are the emotions and the colors? What's the momentum, the connection, the purpose? Guys, as photographers, the premise, it sets the tone. As a wedding photographer, that means often when we're in the hair and the makeup and we're shooting the candid moments of the girls hanging out and popping champagne bottles, the beginning chapters of the story. And often I think that sometimes we skip right past those things and we go and focus on things like shooting the shoes or shooting the rings or the dress or the invitation or the flat lay or whatever it is that we can do that feels more creative. But don't get lost from the premise. In fact, if you don't have a premise, the rest of the story falls apart because without understanding why we're there and who we're with, we don't have anything to build on. That's the skeleton. So the next section that I was told, that I read through, that is an important part of storytelling are the characters. Now, this seems pretty obvious, but I think often we get distracted by understanding, especially as wedding photographers, that there's only 2 characters. So we need to think through things like, who are all of the people and how are they connected? Why do they matter? Who are the people in the inner circle and the outer circle? How far do the ripples go? If we're going to tell stories more completely, we need to understand that a wedding day isn't just about 2 people, and that often family photos aren't just about the 4 people, but about all of the people that may not even be able to be there, but that have influence in those moments. In fact, the best storytellers that I know are people that can sit back and find ways to connect characters in ways that you wouldn't probably have connected them, obviously. Meaning you're seeing the reactions to a moment, or you're seeing people that are meeting for the first time, emotional moments of connectivity, of humanity that aren't obviously aesthetic, and yet they're still very important. The third section, of the 5 elements of a story are prose. Now, when you're reading through a story, what that typically means is the verbiage, the words, the way they're strung together, right? The way that the author uses their words to articulate a thought or build a story. But as an artist and as a photographer, that exact same concept carries over to what we do every single day. Here's the things I would think about. Things like, what technique are you using to help drive the story? What are the lighting concepts that you're using? How is it that you're staying consistent in your editing? How are you bringing together, gluing together, grouting together the mosaic of all of these characters and these scenes and these moments? What is it that you're doing to connect them as the storyteller? That's your prose. That's your articulation. That's the important secret ingredient that some photographers that are so brilliant at storytelling just seem to inherently get. It's not about batch processing your photos or about making sure that everything looks the same. It's about allowing image to image to have a connectivity that is almost tangible without being obvious. The fourth section of being a part of a story is the plot. It's the sequence of events that make up the action. It's the obvious stuff, right? It's the moments that she walks down the aisle or the moment that he cries. It's the factual elements, the moments that tie the rest of the images together. The things like the first dance or the bouquet toss or mom buttoning up the dress. Those moments of plot give everything else purpose. And so often I think we focus so much on those key elements that we neglect the other smaller portions of the story. But don't get mistaken. Everything matters. Every image that you shoot, every moment of movement, every element of character and emotion, all of them matter. And every piece of that has to be deliberate into pulling together the way that you are telling the story. Your images follow the same rules as the written word from an author. You're creating prose with photos, and sometimes you're trying to tell the cause and effect in a single image. What that probably means from like a film school perspective is better articulated by saying you're trying to show the action and the reaction in a single image. And sometimes as wedding photographers, instead, what we're trying to do is use 500 images or 1,000 images to tell that story. And regardless of the way or the style that which you try and connect those stories together, the important thing here is that you realize that just having one powerful image or one Pinterest perfect photo or one big banger that's going to get all the likes on Instagram doesn't make you a storyteller. And isn't that why you got into this? I would challenge you as a photographer to think through that. What is it, especially you wedding photographers out there, what is it that got you into this? Because it can't just be the couple's photos, and it can't just be those big plot photos that tie everything together. It has to be the moments of connectivity, the tangible elements in which your humanity and the humanity and the people on the other end of the lenses all collide. And then I would challenge you as a photographer to make sure that you're doing a great job in articulating your own place in that story. So 3 quick takeaways that can help you level up the way you're telling stories today. Number 1, understand the characters and how they connect to the scene. Do a better job of getting to know the people around you. And often that means that you have to connect back. You have to be vulnerable in the story. Sometimes you actually play a part in the story that you don't even belong to. And if you don't have a grasp of that, you may be missing how important your part actually is. Number 2, be intentional. Don't just shoot to shoot. In fact, often setting the camera down and just watching a scene develop is a real sign of maturity in an artist. Consider your composition just like an author would in the way they craft a sentence. Be so purposeful in the way that you build the story that on the back end, the people that are reliving it feel as though they are seeing it for the first time again. Make sure, and this is number 3, that you aren't only focusing on the middle chapters. The setup and the conclusion often are the most important parts of a story. And so if you're only focused on the ceremony or the speeches or the dances or the cake cut or all of the simple things to capture that happen in the meat of the story, you're missing the opportunity to paint that picture of why it all matters. So you have to be just as good from the moment the mascara is put on until the couple runs through the sparklers. And you have to have the intentionality to understand that every moment in between is what makes you a storyteller. So get out there this week, this next month, the next time you pick up a camera, and just try to do it better and better. Guys, my name is Miles Whitboyer. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to me rant. Hey, if you're enjoying this podcast, if you like all the things that I have to say, or if you don't, I would love to hear from you in the DM. Also, if you have guests that you'd love to hear come on here so that we can rant back and forth, I would love to know who those are. And if you can connect me with those people, even better. Y'all, I am so grateful that you took a few minutes out of your day to join me on this podcast. We'll be back soon with episode number 3 and furthering our conversation about storytelling. Have a great day.